2025 has been a really dramatic one for the royals already. Prince Harry's legal win against News Group newspapers is having wide-reaching effects, with the Murdoch company paying an undisclosed sum and apologising to the Prince for intrusions into his life and the life of his mother Diana.
Now, it remains unclear why Prince Harry decided to take a settlement, despite previously stating he would see the court case through to the bitter end. Here to help us understand the impacts of this move, royal commentator Angela Mollard. Hello, Ange, welcome. After fighting this crusade for such a long time, do we know what happened to convince Prince Harry to take the settlement?
I think it's two things. I think it's the Sun taking, NGN newspapers taking full responsibility. I also think that it's the apology, not just to him, but to Diana. As you know, Kylie, we've talked about this in the past. This has been Harry's core celeb since he was a teenager. Getting that apology for his mother, it was critical to this. I think the other thing is that he knows every time he goes back into court on these issues, it's bad for his mental health. There's also a claim that they really need the money, that Meghan and Harry needed this money, that Meghan behind the scenes is pressuring Harry to move on, to not be dwelling in this part of his life and to look forward. So I think she would have had something to do with it. Very interesting that it was at the 11th hour. Obviously, they were in court ready to go. Yeah. But just to make note that, of course, there's another court case due next January with Associated Newspapers along the same lines as the two that he's already been through. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
OK, so we all know the palace obviously didn't want Harry to take on the paper so publicly. What's this going to do to their relationship, do you think, Harry and the royals?
This is interesting. I think this is another potential reason behind it. The palace never wanted to get involved with the papers. They worked with the papers to get Camilla seen on board as somebody that could be a potential queen. So there was a bit of quid pro quo going on there, which is something that Harry has alluded to and spoken about, that, you know, the palace were a sort of sellout to this. What I think is potentially, moving forward here is that the fact that Harry stood back from this, could this be the beginning of some repair with the palace? This is, we remember that Harry revealed the fact that his brother had also taken a settlement. William had never said about that. Look, this could see the early seedlings of some sort of repair, and that may be another reason. The palace never wanted to go up against the papers, publicly at least.
Yeah, well, Harry's done their dirty work for them. He's been the fall guy. He's been the one gone and done it, and now they will benefit from it. So maybe they might soften towards him.
Well, interesting if they will benefit from it, because the fact is that by being culpable but not really naming anybody within the newspapers, it just understands whether or not there will be repercussions within publications.
They'll have to pull their head in a bit.
They'll pull their head in.
Yeah. To put it bluntly.
Very unroyal.
In other news, there was this story going around LA that a book had been shopped around saying, like, if Meghan was to write a post-divorce story. But there's been some headlines overnight which is telling a different story. What's that?
Yeah, so of course this came from... There was never any indication that Meghan sat down with publishers and said, I'm going to do a divorce book. These were her people on her behalf. But what people are saying behind the scenes, including publishing executives, is that there is no interest in Meghan unless she's married to Harry, that it's their union as a couple that makes them an interesting concept. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. If you imagine if they were separated, I think they'd still be interested in Prince Harry. I also think that the sympathy would be with Harry rather than Meghan. So is it really in Meghan's best interest to be shopping a book? That, as I say, no indication she's doing that herself, but certainly staff have raised that. So you have to imagine that their partnership is what makes them compelling right now and obviously going forward.
Kylie, did we report on a headline and then report on that the headline wasn't real? Is that what we've done?
Well, there's a first for everything, Larry.
Oh, my gosh. Moving on, the Spencer ladies, Kitty, Amelia and Eliza, have opened up in an interview. What are the takeaways from that chat?
Look, these are the cousins, of course, of Harry and William, the nieces of the late Princess Diana. Look, when you look at pictures of them, you can't tell them apart. They're absolutely gorgeous. But what they've talked about is their work with the Centrepoint agency, which is the homelessness charity that Prince William is still involved with. They work alongside that. These girls were English-born but brought up in South Africa. Lady Kitty wore memorably 5 Dolce & Gabbana wedding dresses on her big day. So in England, there's a lot. They're very appealing girls. They're very gorgeous. They're doing here on this little chat. They're sort of asking each other who's the worst dancer, who's the messiest. They're all they've all got big careers as models, and they've got close relationships with Harry and and William, both of them. So they have to do that thing that Eugenie and Beatrice are always doing, is straddling the relationship between the two cousins.
The tap dance.
Yes.
Now, the Duchess of Edinburgh is having a 60th birthday supper. That sounds quite posh. This is, of course, Sophie.
That's right.
So who's coming, and do we think this is a sign that Sophie's really been elevated in the royal family?
She has, and I was speaking to someone during the King's tour here last year saying that the palace is so trying to get attention on Sophie. She's hardworking, she never puts a foot wrong, she's raised these gorgeous children. I want to see her on a Vogue cover, actually, or a Tatler cover. She has earned it, and as you saw from those beautiful pictures on her birthday. But this party, it's apparently, yes, it's posh, it's a supper, it's at Bagshot Park, their house. They've had to pull in staff from Windsor Castle because they don't have enough staff of their own, but everybody is allegedly going to this.
Nice.
The King, the Queen, the Prince and Princess of Wales, everyone's going there. No date yet on when it's going to be. Her children are coming down, but she, of course, is one of the hardest working members of the royal family. She was number 4 last year after the King, Queen and her husband.
OK. Meanwhile, Sophie's daughter, Lady Louise, has made headlines. We are now reluctant to report on headlines in case we have to say next week. She's following Queen Elizabeth II's footsteps, according to these headlines. Could be the first female royal to serve in the military since her grandma.
That's right. So she's at university studying English, and she's highly involved in officer training programs, so the Army cadetship program within the university. Fabulous pictures of her in her Army outfits. But yes, as the late Queen, she took part during the war. She was the last female member of the armed services. So
remember all those great mechanic shots of the Queen?
Weren't they wonderful?
Yeah.
She was such a, she was really hands-on, and apparently even in late life she could fix a Land Rover, in 3 minutes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
lovely. And look, Lady Louise, everybody adores her. She was of course very close to Philip and to the Queen herself. So everybody's looking.
It's a cool generation, that next squad
yeah,
coming,
and preceding George.
Yeah. Thanks, Angela. See you soon.